Edo, now known as Tokyo, was one of the largest and most flammable cities on Earth, burning down so often that fires were called the Flowers of Edo. To fight these massive infernos, a completely unique culture of rough, tattooed heroes was born. Today, we are exploring the definitive history of the secret life of Edo-period firefighters, uncovering exactly how they fought flames not with water, but with destruction. Between 1601 and 1867, the city of Edo counted 1,798 fires. 49 of those were classified as great fires, meaning one catastrophic inferno roughly every 5 years. And here's the thing you need to understand about Edo. This was a city built from wood, bamboo, straw, and paper. Homes stood shoulder to shoulder in tightly packed neighborhoods, where a single spark could erase an entire district in hours. So how did this city survive for over 260 years? The answer is the Hikeshi, fire erasers, fire warriors, men who ran toward infernos armed with nothing but raw strength, hooked poles, and an almost reckless courage that made them both beloved and feared. The story of Edo's firefighters really begins with one night of absolute horror. March 2nd, 1657. The Great Fire of Meireki. Legend says it started when a priest was cremating a cursed furisode kimono, a long-sleeved garment that had been owned in succession by 3 teenage girls who all died before ever wearing it. As the monk chanted sutras and threw the kimono into the flames, a gust of wind caught the burning silk and carried it onto the roof of Hanmyoji Temple. The fire spread instantly. For 3 days, Edo burned. When it was over, somewhere between 60 and 70% of the city lay in ashes. The death toll reached an estimated 100,000 people, roughly 14% of the entire population. Even the famous Edo Castle lost its tower. A blizzard followed immediately after, compounding the devastation. This was the turning point. In 1658, the shogunate organized its first permanent firefighting force, the Hikeshi, made up of hatamoto, direct vassals of the shogun. This was, remarkably, the first permanent fire service in the world, predating even the London Fire Brigade, which wouldn't form until after the Great Fire of London in 1666. But these samurai brigades weren't enough. Enter Uka Tadasuke, one of the most fascinating bureaucrats in Japanese history. Serving as Edo's magistrate under Shogun Tokugawa Yoshimune, Uka recognized that protecting a city of 1 million people required more than elite warriors. In 1718, he established the Machibikeshi, commoner fire brigades organized into 48 units, each identified by a character of the hiragana alphabet. By 1738, Edo employed over 11,000 firefighters. By 1850, that number had swelled to 24,000. Now here's where the secret life of Edo-period firefighters gets truly fascinating. These men didn't fight fire with water. Water pumps didn't arrive in Japan until the mid-1700s. And even then, bamboo hoses produced barely a trickle. The city's water supply was simply too limited. So instead, the Hikeshi fought fire with demolition. When a blaze broke out, their mission was to race ahead of the flames and tear buildings apart with their bare hands. They ripped off roofs, smashed walls, and created empty gaps that starved the fire of fuel. This is why most Hikeshi weren't professional soldiers or civic employees. They were construction workers, scaffolders, and carpenters. Men who knew exactly how buildings were put together and therefore how to take them apart at terrifying speed. They scaled walls with hooked poles called tubiguchi, leaped across rooftops, and climbed bamboo ladders with an acrobatic grace that astonished onlookers. Each brigade carried a motto, a distinctive standard about 2.4 meters tall and weighing up to 20 kilograms. The motto bearer would plant this flag near the fire to claim it for his brigade. Whichever crew reached the blaze first and raised their standard earned the right and the reward for saving the surrounding property. This turned firefighting into a ferocious competition. Rival brigades would race through the streets, sometimes brawling with each other before even reaching the flames. And brawling was practically a lifestyle. In 1805, a group of drunken firefighters from the Mi Brigade got into an altercation with sumo wrestlers at Shinmei Shrine. What started as an argument escalated into a massive free-for-all. Nimble acrobatic firefighters against enormous but slow-moving sumo wrestlers. The fight lasted an extraordinary amount of time, leaving one firefighter dead and over 100 men injured. The incident became so legendary it was later immortalized in a kabuki play that premiered in 1890. This brings us to perhaps the most visually striking aspect of Hikeshi culture: their tattoos. Full-body tattoos called horimono covered these men from neck to ankle. Dragons, warrior heroes, scenes from epic battles, all carved into the skin using bundled needles fixed to bamboo rods in a painstaking technique called tibori. Dragon tattoos were especially popular. In Japanese mythology, the dragon is the only creature that can survive fire, so firefighters wore them as spiritual armor. These weren't decorations, they were identity, belonging, and proof of endurance. The pain of receiving a full-body tattoo was itself a testament to toughness. And here's an irony that still resonates today. In 1998, when the Japanese post office issued stamps commemorating Edo firefighters, they digitally removed the tattoos to avoid offending modern sensibilities. The very thing that defined these men was erased to make them respectable. Their reversible jackets, the Hikeshi Banten, were equally remarkable. Made from multiple layers of cotton quilted with sashiko stitching and soaked in water before firefighting. One side displayed only the brigade name. But flip it inside out, and you'd find elaborate artwork. Warrior heroes and mythical creatures resist dyed using the Tsutsugaki method. These coats have become collected folk art, displayed in museums alongside netsuke and sword guards. The Hikeshi occupied a strange place in Edo society. They were heroes who saved neighborhoods, but also rough, hard-drinking men who ran protection rackets. After all, when your brigade decides which buildings to demolish as fire breaks, it pays to stay on their good side. Some historians draw a direct line from the Hikeshi to the modern Yakuza, arguing that the gangsters' tradition of full-body tattoos originated not in prison markings, but in firefighter pride. Women turned out to watch them work, drawn by their physical prowess and the artistry of their ink. They appeared as characters in kabuki plays, ukiyo-e woodblock prints, and popular novels. Even the great artist Hiroshi once served as a fire warden for the shogunate. The Hikeshi were, in every sense, celebrities of the Edo period. In 1868, the Meiji Restoration swept away the old order, and the traditional Hikeshi system was disbanded. Modern fire services with pumps, hoses, and eventually motorized equipment took their place. But the spirit of the Hikeshi never truly vanished. Every new year in Tokyo, construction workers who consider themselves spiritual descendants of the Edo firefighters perform Hashigonori, death-defying acrobatic stunts atop 6-meter bamboo ladders, a memorial to the 120 firefighters who died in service from the Edo through the Showa periods. The Tokyo Fire Museum in Shinjuku dedicates its entire 5th floor to the Hikeshi, displaying Matoi standards, reversible coats, and woodblock prints that bring this era back to life. The secret life of Edo-period firefighters is ultimately a story about what happens when an impossible problem meets human ingenuity and raw, stubborn courage. These men couldn't extinguish the flames, so they destroyed everything in their path instead. They were construction workers who became acrobats, commoners who became legends, and outlaws who became the soul of a city that burned and rebuilt itself nearly 2,000 times. Fires and quarrels are the flowers of Edo, the old saying goes, yet the greater essence is the fireman,